Okay.
Certainly, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, I'm going to call Ed Winters, Eric Winters, Richard Burke, who is the Libertarian Party of Oregon, and Frank Sigler of Lane County. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Eric Winters. I'm here representing Oregon Free Spirits Coalition. I'm a chief petitioner on a ballot measure that would seek to privatize the OLCC. Don McIntyre and I filed this petition first for the 2002 cycle. It had a lot of support but didn't quite make it, and we're gearing up to do it in the 2004 cycle. However, you could relieve us of a lot of legwork in the next year and a half if, with a little fine-tuning, you helped pass House Bill 3130. And by the way, Don McIntyre could not be here today, but he does send his regards. The Oregon liquor monopoly has been around since Prohibition ended, and the primary justification, or at least one of them at the time, was that we had to reduce the influence of gangsters. Now that notion sort of seems preposterous nowadays, that Al Capone might be running liquor sales in Oregon, but that was a fear that was real back in the 30s. If we were to start over from scratch right now, I seriously doubt that Oregonians would form anything that remotely resembles the current state liquor monopoly. Unfortunately, over the last 70 years, a number of interests have become heavily invested in this status quo. And to effectively privatize the OLCC, you'll have to do some heavy grappling with these interests. I wasn't aware of all of them when I first got into this. For the record, I don't have any interest in the liquor industry. I don't own a bar. I'm an attorney. The only monetary interest I might have is a better price on a single malt scotch. But other than that, I'm here politically, solely for political reasons. I think that the government shouldn't be in this business, and it would be a great way to send a message to the voters of this state that the government is able to reform itself when the need presents itself. I'd like to sketch for you what I've termed the OLCC privatization players. There are people on both sides of the issue, and if you do have the courage and the wherewithal to push this forward, there'll be people popping up all over. Many of them will be testifying here today. Some will be saying this cannot be done. Some will be saying it can be done. Some will be waiting to see the form in which it takes. And over the last 2 years, I've been taking notes on all of these players, and I'd like to share some of them with you. First off,
We do have a time constraint, so if you could do it quickly.
I will try to run through it very, very quickly. First off, the restaurant and bar owners. As was mentioned earlier, we have the third highest government added price markup in the country. If it's designed properly, privatization will lead to competition, which may lower wholesale prices. And the bar owners would love this. The OLCC has a terrible reputation among the bar owners, and I found that I had over 100 bar owners voluntarily collect 20,000 signatures for me in the course of 2 months in the last signature drive cycle. I think this number will probably double in this cycle. The grocers are very interested, obviously, in gathering a share of this market, and I think that the creation of private liquor licensing will open the door for grocery interests to eventually enter the market. And with proper precautions in place, we can shield minor access, and we can phase in competition so that liquor agents aren't harmed by the sudden force to adapt. And you'll find that there are a number of liquor stores. Most of the liquor stores who are in favor of privatization are metro area liquor stores or liquor stores on the borders of the state. The majority of liquor agents do resent the OLCC. However, many are very paralyzed by the fear of the agency or fear of competition if the free market is allowed to flow in too quickly. But most of them believe, at least the ones that I have talked to, that if they're given a fair chance to compete, if a system is phased in, they can compete with the grocery stores by offering specialty selection and additional service, just as long as they have enough time to adapt. And
I'm going to give you 30 seconds more, and we're going on.
well, I have unfortunately way more than 30 seconds left, but I would like to at least close by saying that you're facing a political minefield. And if you can navigate it if you keep track of two objectives. First, the government shouldn't be in the business of peddling booze to its citizens. And it's possible to get the government out of this business without threatening state revenues. Some of the interests, which I did not have an opportunity to name, will be rather disturbed by the process along the way, but if you keep those goals in mind, I think you can serve the customers and voters of this state a lot better. You can create additional private sector jobs, and you will restore, I think, in many ways, the faith of the voters who believe that this government is incapable of reforming itself in any way other than through the initiative process.
Thank you very much. Go to Richard Burke, Libertarian Party.
Okay, thank you very much. For the record, I am Richard Burke, Executive Director of the Libertarian Party of Oregon. Madam Chair, members of the committee, it'll just take a couple of minutes here.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at this document from the League of Oregon Cities, and I looked at some of the names on it, and I know and respect a lot of these people. But there are three objectives: promoting public safety, creating partnerships in livable neighborhoods, and revenue sharing. These are all goals that are not unique to the Liquor Commission. A lot of states use a lot of different ways to control liquor, and I don't think any of those states that have different methods oppose promoting public safety, or oppose creating partnerships for livable neighborhoods, or oppose revenue sharing. And the fact is that the OLCC is a relic, and I think a lot of people know it, even a lot of the OLCC supporters. I refuse to believe that Oregonians and their governmental entities are less intelligent or less capable than those of other states who have successfully established more efficient means of enforcing liquor safety laws and distributing alcohol in a efficient manner. The OLCC's objectives itself represent an inherent conflict of interest. Take a look at what they're supposed to be doing: temperance and revenue enhancement. I was listening to Karen Gregory get up here and make contentions about how much money would be lost if we got the OLCC out of this business. Well, wait a minute. Why is that of interest to her? She is supposed to be promoting temperance. You see the inherent contradiction that there is, the inherent interest. And the reason for this is that government has never been able to successfully promote temperance over time of any product that was highly in demand. This is a fundamental reason why prohibition itself was repealed. Temperance is an important thing, but it's a mission that properly exists in our communities, in our churches, our relief societies, our service clubs, and our families. And if we are to expend resources promoting temperance, I would suggest to you that helping these institutions would be much more useful than helping a dysfunctional organization like the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Let's talk about the dysfunction. A lot of times, when organizations try to justify its existence, it tries to expand the scope of its mission. And the OLCC has done this by, in effect, becoming a self-anointed morality commission. Some examples. I have some documentation here. There's a controversial club, Stars Cabaret. It's an exotic dance club. And I'm not endorsing the activities that take place there, but there are some important things that happened. On February 28th at 10 o'clock, an OLCC agent, a pair of them, came to check out liquor server permits. And one of them was quoted to say, with 3 witnesses present, that the OLCC is at war with the owners and managers of Stars, so I advise you not to get in the middle of it. I have a lot of documentation, and there are people who I can give you to provide you direct testimony that don't want to be their names disclosed in public because of fear of retribution. But if you are open to this, I can arrange meetings with people who have witnessed situations like this in the future.
Richard, let me ask you specifically, if the OLCC, if it went to privatization, how would it affect places like Stars?
Well, I think what would happen is what remains of the Liquor Control Commission would be concerned with its proper mission, and that is whether or not minors are getting alcohol and whether or not people are leaving in an intoxicated state hitting the roads, just as it would be the case with any conventional bar. I would contend that it is the community's business as to the kind of entertainment provided. It's not the Oregon Entertainment Control Commission, it's the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Another example, there is a bar that plays a lot of rap music, and the manager was told they should play less rap music because it attracts the wrong clientele. Okay, then going back to Stars, there was a bus, they have a bus that they bring events to, and the windows are blocked. And the OLCC charged that there was lewd activity taking place on the bus because of the tinted glass, not because anything had been witnessed. So how do you appeal this? You can't. And what does this have to do with making sure minors don't get booze? What does this have to do with making sure that people aren't driving on the road? You know, what's happening is enforcement of these rules is arbitrary and targeted. And that is not what's supposed to happen in a country like the United States, where everyone is supposed to have the laws applied to them equally, and where they're supposed to be consistently enforced, and they should be sticking with the mission. So we contend that not only has, the reason why I bring this up.
Well, let me just interrupt for a minute.
Yeah.
Committee, we are at the end of our meeting. I intend to stay and take the rest of the testimony, and you're welcome to stay. Pretty much what is left is our people who are in the lobby, Paul Romaine, Mary Bach, and Jason Williams. So, and we do have 2 more citizens left, so we will go until 11, and we respect your schedule that you've already made.
And I'll just close. I'm going to say that the OLCC was created out of prohibition, and it is just as obsolete and dysfunctional now as the Federal Rural Electrification Board. It's something that was set up in the Depression, should have been abolished long ago. So should the OLCC. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think the Libertarian Party has been true to their platform today. And we will go to Frank Siegler.
My name is Frank Sigler. I'm the founder of the Oregon Wine Market. It was a company set up to provide marketing services for the small and medium-sized Oregon wineries to find them new markets. We found 8 million wine enthusiasts who had never heard of Oregon wine before. During the 2 years that we worked with the OLCC to try to work with them, just to work with them, we were subjected to harassments and threats for licensing that they kept trying to force fit us. We didn't sell the wine, we didn't warehouse it, we didn't even touch it, we didn't ship it, nothing. We were a marketing services firm, just like an advertising agency. We put up with that for 2 years. The latest is they began to threaten our clients, the Oregon wineries, with the loss of their license if they did business with us. At that point, I said, the hell with it. I'm moving to another state. This was the second entrepreneurial situation that I had in Oregon. The last one got funded by Intel Corporation, moved to San Jose, mainly because of some of the bureaucratic problems in the state of Oregon. But when I ran into the OLCC and the way they operate, where they make a ruling, and that's it, you have no recourse. Okay. Their answer is, well, hire a lawyer. Well, fine. You hire a lawyer, used to fighting with the OLCC, guess what? They've got other clients that have licenses issued by the OLCC. So what are you going to do? You're going to kowtow to the OLCC because they hold the trump card. There is no recourse. There's no arbitration. This is a group that is appointed by the governor. These 6 directors pick the one person, and they literally have run roughshod over the Oregon wine industry. The Oregon wine industry is caught in a crossfire among the big boys. You've got the liquor distributors, and you've got, you know the fight that's going on. Well, the collateral damage being done to the Oregon wine industry, I mean, these are farmers in the best sense of the word. These are people that are into the art and science of wine. And I have never run across wine as good as is made in Oregon. Is because of the diligence of the Oregon wineries. And yet they are under the thumb of the OLCC.
Okay.
Why not put them back into the Department of Agriculture where they belong? That's basically, well, the reason I wanted to come today was say, I enjoyed my 5 years in Oregon.
And
But-
you live where now?
Pardon?
You live where now?
I still didn't hear you.
Where do you live now?
The house is for sale.
I see.
Oh, and by the way, you asked about some of the other states that had things like the OLCC and what was their experience. You might want to check into North Carolina. Just a few years ago, they did away with their liquor board, and it was amazing the savings that they wound up with after they did.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Very interesting, very fascinating. I'm going to call Thomas Matthews and Mark Carson, and thank you for being so patient and waiting. I know you've been sitting a long time. Could you transfer down to show me this sheet? Good morning.
Madam Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Mark Carson, and I have the liquor store that is in the picture on the handout that I gave you. OLCC is as outdated as the store in this picture, which has a special meaning to me personally. It was taken the year I was born, and my father is the second person on the left. Store 2 was opened February 16th, 1934, and was the first liquor store opened in the state of Oregon. Yesterday is gone, as should the archaic Oregon Liquor Control Commission. They have just outlived their usefulness. Others will talk of the many faults of the OLCC. My support for House Bill 3130 is based on one simple question: what good do they do? This is truly a difficult question for them from all perspectives, especially when you consider the answer is no to all of the following questions. Do they arrest people for drunk driving? Do they control bootlegging in Oregon? Are they honest with the legislators in the budget process? Do they negotiate to protect Oregon from litigation? Do they have expertise in areas that will help enhance Oregon's liquor industry? Have they established and maintained a positive public image? Are they cost-effective? Is their rulemaking fair, responsible, and efficient? With all the problems OLC faces through litigation and initiative petitions, is effective management demonstrated? Are the best interests of Oregon being met by the OLCC? Is this a complete list of failures? My first job title 34 years ago was a liquor store clerk. Since that time, it has been my privilege to observe the good and the bad associated with the OLCC. From firsthand experience, let me tell you that things have gone downhill, and it is time for a complete change in Oregon's alcoholic management philosophy. OLCC has become nothing more than a fundraising organization with a facade of managing alcohol in Oregon. Careful scrutiny of OLCC's actions will clearly demonstrate management's willingness to go to almost any means to keep personal power. Recently, budget cuts were mandated. The fat cat survived and allowed the lower-level workers to pay the bill. This produced the interesting situation of a stores director only supervising 3 professional district representatives and a part-time secretary. Government waste at its finest. OLCC just sent out a memorandum to all liquor stores stating that they'll no longer provide current year's driver's license guide to the stores because of budget constraints. One must question the judgment of an organization that keeps expensive bureaucrats in lieu of the needed useful work tools. I view House Bill 3130 as a fine starting point towards the redistribution of OLCC's power. The Oregon Department of Revenue should handle the money. Let's give the enforcement positions and automobiles to the state police, where real alcohol management occurs. Licensing retail liquor sales makes perfect sense. Several state agencies would be appropriate to manage the liquor licensing functions. Last Tuesday morning, I watched my attorney, Mr. David Nepom, argue before the Oregon Court of Appeals. The issues being litigated are simple. OLCC needs to license me, make me a state employee, or make me a truly independent contractor by removing their employee type regulations. The OLCC's attorney noted that you folks in the legislature have bills before you that will eliminate the OLCC making court action moot. Actually, he was wrong. The court action will make a decision, and that decision will have an effect. Sadly, OLCC could have easily avoided this entire mess had they been willing to negotiate. Liquor store operators made many attempts to work with the OLCC to find a reasonable solution to the problems. They and their representatives were rebuffed each time. I would love to spend the day sharing interesting stories that illustrate the need for the OLCC to disappear. However, it is time to respond to any questions you may have, and thank all of you for the time.
Thank you, and we do not have time for questions. Mr. Matthews, if you could give your testimony in 1 minute and not read it, I'd appreciate it.
I plan to.
Okay.
Because I'm in a hurry too. I took this day off. I delayed my vacation one day so I could visit with you folks.
Thank you for being here.
Honestly, I'd like to respond to Representative Burke's question on price. That price will be determined by the tax, which is blank line in the bill at this time, and there is a cost of operation added to the top of it. There are only 4 components in the price of the liquor: the cost of the physical plant, the cost of employees, the cost of profit, and the cost of any taxes that the legislature imposes. That combination will determine the retail price, no matter what the tax is.
Clarification, Madam Chair.
Okay, clarification.
Are you addressing the price at which the state would sell its surplus liquor to the new retailers?
No, you asked the question, what will the new price be? Will there be any savings?
No, that wasn't my question.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
As
Do you
far
want
as
to
the sale of
rephrase it?
liquor, I offered some suggestions to Representative Miller's people to address that issue because it's one that needs to be cleared up.
Well, we'll just go ahead with the
A
test.
couple other things that have been given in testimony here. I find it interesting that a leader of an agency would quote you a loss of $71 million and $140 million when they don't even know what the tax levels are going to be. That's nothing but a scare tactic. You people should run for cover in the bomb shelter. Then I see a consumption figure here that we're 15% lower than everybody else. But it's been noted in other testimony that we don't enforce the borders in Oregon. Our prices are very, very high, and there's just a river of alcohol coming across the southern border. We don't drink less in Oregon. In fact, some of our people are pretty good drinkers. We just buy at other places. We don't get the benefits from the taxes. And the last comment that I thought was interesting was 1/4 of our 8th graders are drinking. That certainly speaks not very well for the enforcement of the liquor and the prevention of minors getting to alcohol by our existing agency. I think we need a change. And with that, I will close my testimony unless anyone has a question. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your colorful testimony page.
Well, the dinosaur, he started years ago when he wrote a Better Government. You can type on Cascade Policy Institute's website, Tiny Matthews in there, and it'll give you the whole thing.
I see.
But he was a logo. and everybody wants to take a bite out of his poor green hide.
I
And,
see.
you're gonna see everybody say, hey, don't take my piece of the dinosaur. But really, you folks need the courage to just go out and ask some of your constituents. Just take a poll amongst your constituents. Not the people that are in here talking to you, because they're gonna say what they want you to hear. Go out and talk to some of the people and see what they would do. And they're gonna tell you, we want a better government, we want to get rid of these people. Because they have a reputation with the public that is about as bad as you can get. Probably the worst state agency in the business for reputation with the public. That's not positive. So, anyway, that's why the dinosaur is existing.
Well, thank you, Mr. Matthews, and we appreciate your coming and your testimony, both of you. Okay, we're going to call our lobby. Saved you for last because you're here every day. I hope you understand. Paul Romaine, Mary Bodkin, Jason Williams.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Paul Romaine. I'm an attorney in Portland. I represent the Oregon Beer and Wine Distributors Association. I'm going to give you just a little bit of background. I used to be the Chief Deputy Attorney General for the state of Oregon from 1977 to 78, at which time I also served in the role as Special Counsel to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. We went through an investigation of the commission at that time. I've been associated with or dealt with the commission for probably longer than most anybody in the state of Oregon. I've seen it go through many changes. I can tell you that it's one heck of a good organization compared to what it used to be. It does provide good service. I just wanted to hit a couple of points. Number one, availability of product in the state. You get far greater availability of different products in a control state than you do in an open state. Oregon is a control state. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission will order for you any product that you want, as long as it's sold in the United States. All you have to do is agree to pay for one case of that product. They will bring it in from wherever it is. It will not cost you any more than buying anything else off their shelf. That's number one. Number two, the cost of the product is determined by the amount of tax you take. The reason that people end up having liquor shipped in from California or Maryland, which has a very low tax, or some other state, is because those states have chosen to tax the product less than we do. We have the third highest tax, if you would. That's why the product is high. If you privatize the liquor industry, my people will be the wholesalers. We cannot wholesale as cheaply as the state wholesales. The reason for that is very simple. What the state does is they purchase it, they go to a manufacturer, or the manufacturer comes to them. The manufacturer is told, we want it shipped to the state of Oregon. We'll buy it at the cheapest price. You ship it to us. We're the only buyer. You ship it at your expense. You store it in our warehouse in Milwaukee at your expense, and we won't even pay for it until we put it out in the green front store. You can imagine a beer distributor trying to do that with Anheuser-Busch. It would be a former beer distributor the next day. It doesn't work that way. There's a huge savings. Our cost of wholesaling a product is about 20% of sales. The OLCC cost of wholesaling is less than 2% of sales. That goes into the price. So if you simply take the same amount of money out of, the state wants to keep the same amount of money and leave everything the same, when you privatize, you will increase the cost to the consumer considerably. So we can't do it as cheaply. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Go to Mary.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Mary Bodkin. I'm here representing the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. I'm going to be very brief. We represent about 200 families who depend on the OLCC for their livelihood. And we also like to think that we represent a lot of Oregonians that depend on the OLCC to enforce liquor laws and control the sale of liquor, distilled spirits only, of course. Our goal as an agency and as employees who work for that agency is to make liquor available to responsible consumers for responsible consumption. We provide great customer service. If this bill were to pass, most of rural Oregon's liquor stores would immediately go out of business because they would be forced to buy the inventory for which they have no ability to buy. The other thing that they would be forced to do is they would be forced, if they could stay in business after they had to buy their own inventory, they would have to then move to a situation where they have to buy full cases of liquor rather than buying broken cases. In other words, they can special order high-end liquors that they don't move as quickly, or liquors that they move quicker than others, and break a case. And we will special package those cases for them based on their order and the consumption of their consumers in their areas. You know, this whole idea of privatizing OLCC, let me just say that this is the only time you're ever going to hear me say that we should continue privatizing what's already been privatized. We privatized OLCC 2 decades ago. We moved it from completely state-owned and operated to individuals owning their own stores, running their own operations. Yes, they have controls. Madam Chair, they're not selling eggs. They're not selling lettuce. They're selling liquor. Liquor makes people crazy sometimes. It kills our kids. It kills our moms. You know, when Eric Winters and those folks ran their ballot measure, we sat down with the liquor agents and worked out a coalition program with Mad Mothers. It was the union, Mad Mothers, and the liquor agents put together a decline to sign campaign. When we printed up the literature and made it available to the liquor agents, there were 10 agents in the state of Oregon who did not take literature to hand out at their liquor stores. The reason they didn't get on the ballot, Madam Chair, is because there's virtually no support. The liquor agents that we work with like the way the system works. We have a good system. It's efficiently run. The employees work hard. They do more with less. There's very little complaining. And if you go down to the budget committee, you'll hear them talk about the cutbacks that they've had. Population's up, sales are up. This is an agency that makes us a lot of money. We need the money. And you know what? We need the enforcement and everything else as well. You know, if they want to compete with Liquor Barn, tell them to move to California. I will take any one of those stores. You know, they have not offered one to me over all these years, but I'll take any one of those stores that these guys don't want anymore, and I'll run it, or I'll have my husband run it, because you know what? They make money.
Okay.
Thank you.
You, Mary. And the last word goes to Jason.
Thank you very much, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jason Williams, Executive Director of the Taxpayer Association of Oregon. And gave you a little handout talking about how some of the problems of OLCC is being picked up by editorial boards around the state. Hillsborough complains, you know, here they are, the second biggest county, and they've only got 16 liquor stores, and they're having problems getting new ones. And same thing there with in the Bend area, with the Ben Bolton saying, you know, 27 years between the last liquor store being built. So you're seeing that there is this kind of momentum out there, and I would say that being involved with some of the initiative gathering on this the first time around is that when we asked people to go out and collect for several of our signatures, different petitions that we had, that the OLCC was one of the more popular ones. So yeah, I definitely think it resonates with the public, the idea about getting rid of something that's just unnecessary. And I think taxpayers lose twice. First of all, because we are paying for employees in a structure that just is unnecessary. It doesn't need to exist. Other states have shown doesn't need to exist. So we're paying taxpayer money for that. Second of all, when people do go across the border, I mean, they're just amazed at how good deals that they can get under a system where, you know, that it's open up to the free market. And so they buy some of their liquor purchases out of state and bring them here. So we're losing money unnecessarily with that. So there was just two ways we're losing revenue unnecessarily. And so when you think about it, if we have the system that it doesn't need to be there, that it doesn't work, that it has all of these problems, and you've heard it today, we need to reach the point where we need to modernize. We can become like other states and fix this, which we feel is just philosophically wrong. There does not need to be this over-regulation of something that's for an adult product. And we feel like, you know, this idea about price and availability, well, we can not have the teens get it if we just raise the price. I hate going down that path because, why don't we just raise the price of rated R movies? Why don't we raise the price of driving? And that will keep underage people away from that. And I feel like that is just not necessarily the key function of government, is to raise the price of something just to keep adults or the people who shouldn't be using the project from purchasing it. But please do take a look at what some of the editorials have said around the state, and I think that would give you a good education on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, committee, for bearing with us, and everybody who came. This does have a referral to revenue where the discussion would continue, so we will intend to work the bill some more. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.